Are following some breaking news. I want you to take a good look at your screen. This is the latest video we are getting for this breaking news alert as the Associated Press reports that Yemen Houthi rebels claimed this Tuesday that they shot down another American MQ-9 Reaper drone, even as the U.S. kept up its campaign of intense airstrikes targeting the group. The reported shootdown over Yemen's contested governorate came as airstrikes hit the Sanaa, the country's rebel-held capital, a stronghold for the Houthis. U.S. President Donald Trump issuing a new warning to both the Houthis and their main benefactor, Iran, describing the group as having been, quote, decimated by the campaign of strikes that began March 15th. A lot to discuss this morning, so we want to bring into the conversation CEO and founder of Jewish News Syndicate, Alex Trayman. Alex, good morning to you. Always a pleasure having you on the show.
Gina, thanks for having me.
So a lot to discuss. Let's first dissect and provide some perspective as regards to Israel, the U.S., and the Yemen Houthi rebels. A lot of eyes are on Hamas and Hezbollah this week, but we can't forget about the Houthis. We've seen them out along the Red Sea out as it relates to cargo, pretty much causing chaos and conflict with trade. But let's discuss the latest that happened on this Tuesday.
Well, as you mentioned, the United States has really taken the Houthis to task for interrupting international shipping, for sending ballistic missiles, which they continue to send at Israel, and also for attacking U.S. vessels that are patrolling the region, trying to keep peace. And the United States has launched a very severe series of raids and airstrikes throughout the Yemen, targeting Houthi infrastructure and also leadership.
Alex, speaking of that leadership, I want you to take a look at your screen. This is the very latest from U.S. President Donald Trump as the U.S. and Houthi forces exchange fire over Yemen. President Trump providing this quote via Truth Social. We're watching it together with the viewers. It says, quote, the Iran-backed Houthi terrorists have been decimated by the relentless strikes over the past 2 weeks. Many of their fighters and leaders are no longer with us. We hit them every day and night, harder and harder. Their capabilities that threaten shipping and the region are rapidly being destroyed. Our attacks will continue until they are no longer a threat to freedom of navigation. The choice for the Houthis is clear. Stop shooting at U.S. ships and we will stop shooting at you. Otherwise, we have only just begun, and the real pain is yet to come for both the Houthis and their sponsors in Iran. Again, Alex, that coming from President Donald Trump via Truth Social. For many of the viewers this morning, as they saw that quote, it reminded them of how Israel has been from the very beginning saying, you know, their fight will not stop until terrorists are eliminated. What do you gather from this quote from President Trump, Alex?
Well, I think, first of all, it's important that the United States is saying that they are, once again, the international policemen. It's not only that the Houthis have been attacking Israel. They have interrupted one of international shipping in one of the world's busiest commercial waterways, which is the Suez Canal. It's forced the prices of goods up all over the world. The ships are forced to sail across around the southern tip of Africa. And they've also attacked U.S. ships. And the previous administration was basically willing to allow that to happen. The Trump administration is not allowing that to happen. But I think what's more important is that as President Trump has been sending signals to Iran that it wants to negotiate the dismantling of their nuclear program, seeing that the United States is willing to take on the Houthis and to strike so significantly inside Yemen is a strong signal to the Islamic Republic and the leaders of that republic in Iran that if Iran does not negotiate and if President Trump does not get the deal that he wants, which would see Americans and others coming in to dismantle that nuclear program, that there is a very credible military threat on the backs of the calls for negotiations.
Yeah, let's further discuss Iran this morning. For many people, they are that terroristic mastermind behind all of these chaotic entities out in the Middle East. When we think of Hamas, Hezbollah, and as we discuss the Yemen Houthi rebels, from your perspective and what you live and breathe every single day, what are you seeing as far as Iran and their mastermind and what they are doing to fuel the terroristic acts in the Middle East?
Oh, Iran has really destabilized the entire Middle East. They have a destabilizing presence in Iraq, in Syria. They basically destroyed Lebanon by funding and arming Hezbollah, which has mostly taken over that country and caused Israel to go to war there. They have destabilized Yemen with the Houthis, and they were a major backer of Hamas in Gaza. And there was been coordination between the Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis and other terror organizations of the Islamic Republic since October 7th. It's been a campaign, a ring of fire around the state of Israel. So when people think that this is, for example, just some part of the extended Israeli-Palestinian conflict, that's really not the case at all. In fact, Palestinians living inside Israel and what the international community calls the West Bank are not really fighting against Israel. Israel's only fighting against Iran and its terror proxies. And it's good to finally see that the United States recognizes that if Iran would cross the nuclear threshold, that the damage that they could do, even just having a nuclear umbrella, would be much, much more dangerous than what they've been able to accomplish over the last year and a half before they've crossed that nuclear threshold.
Alex, I know from the very beginning of these conflicts, you've been hearing that looming question: what can be done to eradicate these terroristic organizations so that those peacefully living in the Middle East can get back to that? What would that response be? We are a year into these conflicts, now months and days, as hostages are still in Hamas captivity. We've seen Hezbollah ramping back up with their infrastructure and their infiltration against Israel. It seems as soon as people start to breathe a sigh of relief, thinking things are getting back to normal, thinking the terrorists are waning in their fight against Israel, it gets right back up.
Right. I mean, people say that you can't destroy an ideology, and that may or may not be true, but you can certainly make sure that those that have a murderous ideology don't control territory and also don't have the military capabilities to try to attack on the basis of their ideology. And Israel has really taken to filing down the capabilities of Hamas in Gaza, which is a much less potent force than it was prior to October 7th. And the same thing in southern Lebanon with Hezbollah. However, there was a lot of pressure on Israel to enter into ceasefire agreements, both in Lebanon and in Gaza, whereby a lot of those terror organizations, Hezbollah and Hamas, have been filed down, but the job has not been finished. And I think that we're very likely to see, with the backing of the Trump administration, Israel return to war, particularly in Gaza, to completely eradicate Hamas, both as a political force ruling Gaza as well as a military force. And if we see skirmishes and rocket fire continuing in southern Lebanon, you might not be surprised to see Israel make a renewed push there to continue to file down Hezbollah as well.
Alex, really briefly before you go, you mentioned the Trump administration. I'd love to hear what the response is there in the Middle East from Israelis, many of them crediting President Donald Trump for the release of the hostages that we've seen so far, but also for the eradication of many of the terrorists in that area. Could you compare and contrast it to, we've seen the protest against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu right there in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, in and around that area. Could you provide that perspective as the U.S. government aiding Israel during this fight, please?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, the United States has done so many things to help Israel. First, they've already told Israel that they have a green light to break the ceasefire. They immediately, upon entering into office, opened up the flow of weapons that the Biden administration had withheld, including 2,000-pound bombs. But there were many other shipments that were being slow walked to Israel that are now flowing, giving Israel the tools that it needs. There's talk of also the United States providing Israel potentially with even larger bombs and delivery mechanisms, which Israel would need in order to launch an attack on Iran's underground nuclear facilities. The Trump administration removed sanctions on what the Biden administration called violent Israeli settlers that had never been convicted of any crimes in Israel. And they are also providing backing for Israel in the international institutions, including the UN Security Council. They have put sanctions on the members of the International Criminal Court that issued arrest warrants for Prime Minister Netanyahu, and they have defunded organizations like UNRWA and USAID that have been pumping a lot of money into the efforts ultimately to delegitimize and even to attack Israel. So Israelis are very, very happy with what the Trump administration provides to the Israeli government.
Alex Trayman, always a pleasure to get your expertise and perspective on all things related to the Middle East. Thank you so much for joining us bright and early on this April 1st. I hope you have a great and safe rest of your day.
Likewise, Janie. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you.